I've always been a night owl. Back in the fall of 2021, I was 21 years old in my junior year of college and completely drowning in student loans. Between classes, studying, and trying to maintain some semblance of a social life, I didn't have the time for a traditional part-time job, so I started driving for DoorDash. Most people hate working the late night shift, but for me, it was peaceful. I loved the empty streets, the quiet city, and not having to deal with daytime traffic. Put on a good podcast, cruise around, and drop off fast food to stoned college kids or tired shift workers. It was easy money, or at least it was supposed to be. I lived in a mid-sized city in the Midwest. The downtown area was always relatively busy, but once you drove about 20 minutes in any direction, the city lights faded and you were immediately surrounded by dense woods, winding country roads and sprawling, isolated farmland. It was a Tuesday night, right around 1:30 a.m. It had been raining heavily earlier in the evening, leaving a thick, low-hanging fog rolling across the asphalt. Business had been slow. I was parked in the glowing lot of a 24-hour McDonald's, scrolling through my phone, seriously considering calling it a night and heading back to my apartment. Right as I reached to turn the key in the ignition, my phone screen flashed with a new order. It was a pickup from a late-night diner across the street. But what caught my eye was the payout. It was offering $35 for a single delivery. In the DoorDash world, especially at 1:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, that kind of payout is almost unheard of for a single order. I checked the mileage. It was about a 25-minute drive out of town, heading deep into the northern outskirts. I hesitated for a second. I was tired and the fog was getting thicker, but $35 for one trip was gas money for the rest of the week.
Proceed to the route.
Heading deep into the northern outskirts. I hesitated for a second. I was tired and the fog was getting thicker, but $35 for one trip was gas money for the rest of the week. I accepted the order. I really wish I hadn't. I grabbed the food from the diner, just a simple burger and fries in a greasy brown paper bag, and got back into my Honda Civic. I plugged the customer's address into my GPS and put my car in drive. The customer's name on the app was simply listed as M. Before pulling out of the lot, I checked the delivery instructions to see if there were any gate codes or special directions. The note left by M was highly specific. Leave at the back sliding glass door, do not knock or ring the bell. Baby is sleeping, just leave the food and go. It wasn't totally unusual. Don't wake the baby is a pretty standard delivery instruction, but having to walk all the way into someone's backyard in the pitch black darkness to leave food at a sliding glass door always gave me a weird, invasive feeling. Still, for $35, I wasn't going to complain. I hit the road. For the first 10 minutes the drive was fine, but as I passed the city limits, the streetlights abruptly ended. The road narrowed into a 2-lane highway lined with towering black pine trees. The fog rolling off the wet asphalt was dense, forcing me to keep my high beams on just to see the lines on the road. The deeper I drove into the countryside, the worse my cell service got. My podcast started buffering, eventually cutting out completely. The only sound was the hum of my tyres on the wet pavement and the rhythmic squeak of my windshield wipers. Finally, the GPS told me to make a right turn onto a road that barely looked like a road at all. It was freshly paved but covered in thick streaks of orange construction mud. A large temporary wooden sign sat at the entrance, illuminated briefly by my headlights. It read, "Whispering Pines, luxury homes come in 2022. It was a brand new, unfinished housing subdivision. The neighbourhood was massive, but it was completely dead. There were no streetlights installed yet, just bare electrical poles sticking out of the dirt like dead trees. As I drove deeper into the subdivision, my headlights washed over the skeletal frames of houses in various stages of construction. Some were just concrete foundations, others had wooden framing wrapped in white Tyvek and weatherproofing plastic, which flapped violently in the cold night wind. It felt like driving through a ghost town. My GPS indicated the destination was at the very back of the neighbourhood, in a cul-de-sac. I drove for another 3 minutes, passing dozens of empty, dark lots. The isolation was oppressive. If my car broke down out here, no one would hear me scream. As I pulled into the cul-de-sac, my GPS chimed softly.
You have arrived.
Unlike the others, this one actually looked somewhat finished. The exterior walls were bricked, the roof was shingled, and the windows had glass in them. But something was fundamentally wrong. There were no cars in the driveway. The driveway itself wasn't even poured concrete yet. It was just flattened gravel and mud. There were no lights on inside, no porch light, no landscaping, just an imposing dark silhouette against the foggy night sky. I sat in my idling car, staring at the house. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Nobody lives here, I thought. It's an active construction site. Why would someone order food to an unfinished house at 2 in the morning? I checked the app again. The blue dot of my GPS was right on top of the address. This was definitely the right place. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a night shift security guard keeping watch over the construction equipment. Maybe the owners had just moved in, and the outside wasn't completely finished yet. The instruction did mention a sleeping baby, after all. I took a deep breath, grabbed the greasy paper bag, and stepped out of my car. The moment I shut my car door, the silence of the neighbourhood hit me. It was deafening. There were no crickets, no distant highway noises, just the sound of the wind rustling the plastic wrapping on the neighbouring houses. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the fog, illuminating the muddy path leading up to the house. I remembered the instructions. Leave at the back sliding glass door. I walked past the front porch and made my way around the side of the house. The ground here was a mess of soft, deep mud and discarded construction materials. I had to step over a pile of PVC pipes and a stack of wooden pallets. The side yard was narrow, sandwiched between the brick wall of the house and a dense tree line that marked the edge of the property. The woods looked like a solid wall of black ink. As I rounded the back corner of the house, my flashlight swept across the backyard. Just like the front, it was completely barren. I spotted the small concrete patio and the sliding glass door. I walked up to the patio, shivering in the damp cold. I reached out to set the bag of food down on the concrete, but as the beam of my phone's flashlight hit the glass door, I froze. The sliding glass door was shattered. It wasn't just cracked. The entire bottom half of the pane was violently smashed inward. Jagged shards of glass glittered on the dark hardwood floor inside. My heart began to pound against my ribs. I slowly aimed my flashlight down at the concrete patio, and what I saw made the blood drain from my face. There were muddy footprints, large, heavy boot prints, but they weren't leading into the house. They were leading out of the shattered door. I tracked the muddy prints with my light. They trailed across the concrete patio, down into the soft mud of the backyard, and went straight into the pitch black woods just a few dozen feet away. Someone had broken into this house and then walked out into the trees. Panic seized me. There was no baby. There was no customer. I was standing completely alone, holding a bag of fast food at an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. And then my phone vibrated in my hand. The sudden buzzing made me jump so hard I nearly dropped the food. I looked at the screen. It was an incoming call. The caller ID just said DoorDash customer. My thumb hovered over the screen. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run, to get back to my car and drive away as fast as humanly possible. But some morbid, terrified curiosity compelled me to hit accept. I slowly brought the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice trembling.
Turn around.
Silence. "Hello?" I said again, slightly louder. Through the speaker, I didn't hear a voice. I heard the faint, distinct sound of dead leaves crunching, the sound of twigs snapping. It was the sound of someone walking through the woods. Then, the footsteps stopped. I heard a slow, deep, rattling exhale of breath. It was so close to the microphone, it sounded like the person was standing right next to me. A man's voice, raspy and low, whispered a single phrase. "Turn around." I didn't look back. I dropped the bag of food, spun on my heel, and sprinted. I ran faster than I've ever run in my entire life. I slipped in the mud alongside the house, slamming my shoulder against the brick wall, but I didn't stop. I scrambled over the pile of PVC pipes, tearing my jeans, driven by pure primal adrenaline. Behind me, over the sound of my own ragged breathing, I heard the heavy thudding sound of boots sprinting across the backyard concrete. He was chasing me. I rounded the front corner of the house and saw my Civic parked in the mud. I hit the unlock button on my key fob. The headlights flashed, briefly illuminating the empty street. I yanked the door open, threw myself into the driver's seat, and slammed the door shut, locking it instantly. I jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. As I threw the car into reverse, I looked in my rearview mirror. Standing at the edge of the house, just barely visible at the very edge of my taillights, was a towering figure wearing a dark hooded rain jacket. He was just standing there, perfectly still, watching me. I slammed my foot on the gas. My tires spun in the mud for a terrifying second before catching traction. I whipped the car around, the rear end fishtailing wildly, and floored it down the unfinished street. I was going 50 miles an hour through the subdivision, bouncing violently over uneven pavement. I didn't care if I blew a tire, I just needed to get out. I passed the skeletal houses, the electrical poles blurring past my windows. I kept my eyes locked on the road ahead, praying I wouldn't crash. As I approached the temporary wooden sign at the entrance of the subdivision, my heart skipped a beat. From an unfinished driveway to my left, a vehicle suddenly pulled out. It was a massive lifted pickup truck. Its headlights were completely turned off. It swung out into the road directly behind me, its heavy engine revving so loudly I could hear it over my own car. I turned onto the main 2-lane highway, pushing my Civic up to 80 miles an hour. The dark truck stayed right behind me. It was tailgating me so closely that I couldn't even see its front grille in my rearview mirror. Just a wall of dark metal, inches from my bumper. "Come on, come on, come on!" I chanted out loud, white-knuckling the steering wheel. The driver of the truck wasn't trying to pass me. He was trying to run me off the road. Every time the highway curved, the truck would surge forward, tapping its bumper against mine. The metal-on-metal clatter sent violent shudders through my car. I grabbed my phone to dial 911, but I still had 0 bars of service. I was completely on my own. The chase went on for what felt like an eternity. 10 miles, 15 miles, flying through the foggy, forested countryside with a blackout truck riding my bumper. Finally, I saw a glow in the distance, the halo of sodium lights cutting through the fog. It was a 24-hour truck stop near the interstate on-ramp. I didn't even slow down. I ripped the steering wheel to the right, flying into the gas station parking lot at 60 miles an hour. My tires squealed as I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt directly in front of the brightly lit glass doors of the convenience store. I laid on my horn, holding it down continuously. I looked in my rear view mirror. The dark truck hadn't pulled into the lot. It had stayed on the highway. As I watched, it slowly cruised past the gas station, remaining in the shadows just beyond the reach of the streetlights. It lingered for a moment, the engine idling low, before it slowly accelerated and disappeared into the fog. The gas station attendant called the police for me. When the officers arrived, I was shaking so badly I could barely give them my statement. I told them everything. The delivery, the shattered glass, the footprints, the phone call, and the blackout truck that tried to run me off the road. 2 squad cars were immediately dispatched to the Whispering Pines subdivision. I waited at the gas station for almost 2 hours before an officer returned to take the rest of my statement. What he told me still keeps me awake at night. They found the house, they found my drop bag of fast food on the patio, and they confirmed the shattered sliding glass door. But when they searched the house and the surrounding woods, they found something deeply disturbing. Inside the unfinished basement of the house, they found a sleeping bag, a collection of empty food cans, and several large, heavy-duty zip ties formed into makeshift handcuffs. The officer explained that the house wasn't just a random drop-off point. Whoever was living in that basement had likely been squatting there for weeks. They had ordered the food specifically to lure a driver out to the most isolated, poorly lit house in the neighborhood at 2 in the morning. The muddy footprints leading out of the shattered door weren't from a break-in, it was the squatter. He had shattered the glass himself, walked out into the woods, and waited. He waited for me to walk into the backyard. He watched me from the darkness of the tree line, and when he called me and told me to turn around, he was likely already stepping out of the trees, ready to grab me. If I had hesitated for even 2 seconds before running, I would never have made it back to my car. I never drove for DoorDash again. I deleted the app that same night. Every time I have to drive down a dark, unlit road, I find myself checking my rearview mirror, terrified I'm going to see the silhouette of a dark truck with no headlights, waiting to finish what it started.